Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Comic Source. We have another San Diego Comic-Con, a little bit of a preview episode, hopefully this episode's going to drop on Tuesday. Obviously, the con starts with preview night on Wednesday night and runs through Sunday. And one of the big events that's going to happen, both with an offsite activation as well as a booth on the show floor with immersive experiences, celebrates the Seven Galaxy Chronicles, the Last Lumenian book series, and I have the author, SG Blaise, joining me today to tell all you Comic-Con attendees all about it. So, SG, thanks for taking the time to join me.
Thank you, Jace, for having me.
So, we're going to talk about all the stuff you have for Comic-Con, even teaming up with the Beat, Comics Beat, which is really cool. But before we dive into that, I want to talk about the series itself a little bit. It's fantasy, it's sci-fi. It seems to be inspired by all those things we love, adventure series like Indiana Jones, Star Wars. I love fantasy. It really seems like prose novels are making a big comeback. My wife has started reading them in the last couple of years. So let's start off with kind of a little bit of an elevator pitch. Tell people what The Last Lumenian and Lila and her adventures, tell them what it's all about.
Absolutely, Jace. I like to call this book series my Star Wars meets Lord of the Rings meets Princess Bride.
Yeah.
It's PG-13, clean language, kissing only, no chili peppers here. It follows a 19-year-old rebel Lila who must defeat the Dark God, before he finds her, the Last Lumenian, and that's just book 1 out of a 13-book series, with book 6 coming out this winter.
Yeah, book 5 came out last December, and one of the things I love about it, like you mentioned, it's all these things wrapped up into one. So if you like fantasy, that's your kind of your gateway in. If you like sci-fi, that's your gateway in. If you like romance, that's your gateway in. It celebrates everything, as you mentioned. They're PG-13. But one of the other things that I find interesting, I've been a fan of yours for a long time. I've heard other interviews that you've done. Started writing at a young age with, I think it was a nightmare that you had at age 9, which I found to be interesting. But some of the inspiration for this was a dream also, right? So can you tell our audience a little bit about that?
Absolutely. The inspiration for this book series came from a dream, as you mentioned. I was in a cross-country vacation road trip with my family, and I woke up in Austria, jet-lagged, with this idea in my head that I had to write down. And it was pitch dark around me. All I had is my phone, and I was writing it. It was book 1, book 2, book 3, and that became the source of this series in 2012.
And then the first book, if I'm not mistaken, took you a little bit, right, to build the world and everything because it is so big. So 2020 was the first novel was published. Is that right?
That's correct. It took 7 years, at least 6 or 7 rewrites from blank page to make sure the story was the best I could bring to my amazing audience and fans. And I had to learn how to write because that was also new. I just became fluent in English. So to embark on writing a novel was quite a journey and an experience. So it took a bit of a time, not to mention setting up, I'm indie published, so setting up the website, collecting illustrations, so I can present the universe to my readers and bring a vivid, rich, and diverse world to them.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot goes into it. It is such a rich world. You mentioned, 13 novels, for this first one. I know you have others planned beyond that. So, yeah, we're really talking about taking all that time to lay the groundwork. But since that time, since the first one was released, now you're on a schedule of about 1 a year. Is that right?
That's correct. 1 a year, and we're also working on a comic book series and an animation. Who needs to rest? Not me.
That's right. You could sleep when you're dead. But what's the other thing that's interesting to me about this? We talk about setting up the foundations and what have you, and this idea coming to you from a dream fully formed. But all of us, it's the connection that you and I have, me as the reader, you as the author. So I'm bringing kind of my life experiences to it. You're bringing your life experiences to it as well. But we mentioned some things, Lord of the Rings, Princess Bride, Indiana Jones, Star Wars, things that you experienced as a child. Albeit, through your dad kind of doing something that wasn't exactly legal in Russia where you grew up. But interesting that we share that fandom, right? No matter where you are, worldwide, we kind of have those touch points, the inspirations that you took to write this story, but now expanding it to bring in, inspirations from those, but really create a world and characters that are your own. And this is a huge cast. So I imagine that probably, I won't ask you to pick a favorite character. That's like picking a favorite child, right? But each of them has a little bit of you in it, but each of them inspired by the things that you loved growing up and continue to love in pop culture, right?
That's correct. And I can't pick a favorite. Don't even try, Jace. It's not going to happen. However, with this series, I have a chance to showcase one of the most favorite characters as main heroes, or give them a point of view, which I can't tell you too much about books since it's too new. But I have this chance to give a bit of an insight into these characters for the readers who became familiar with them, who love them, who wants to know more about these characters.
Now, I won't ask you to pick a favorite, but let's talk a little bit about kind of the fan reception and favorites that they've come, because that was the other thing that was challenging. Maybe it wasn't enough that you took 6-7 years to build this out. Then you self-published the first one during pandemic 2020 when, there was paper shortages, and, I don't have to tell you what a challenge it was. But we've come out of the other side of that. And one of the things I love about you is you're very active in the fan community. You're exhibiting at Comic-Con, you do WonderCon and that sort of thing. So a chance to meet the fans and get their reaction to the books and that sort of thing. So talk a little bit about the community that has built up around Last Lumenian and some of your favorite interactions, whether it's fans telling you, oh, I love this part of the story, or I love this character, that sort of thing. Because I imagine you being so accessible to your fans, which is amazing, you've probably had some really great experiences.
I had the best experiences, Jace, and it started in 2022. That's how long it took, to get through the pandemic and to life return to sort of normal. And we went to LA Comic-Con in 2022. We had a little 10x10 booth, and suddenly I had a whole line waiting for the book signing, and people were asking questions. I didn't even have my elevator pitch at the time. We were just happy to be there, sharing the experience. And I never forget, as I'm talking to them, my audience is the fans' eyes go wide. And then I give them a bookmark, a poster, a character card, and their jaw drops. And every single time it happened, I felt so grateful. It was such a joy, such a magical experience to connect with my readers, to share the stories, what inspired the book series, to share the story that my dad had to smuggle in the Hollywood movies because I grew up during the second half of Soviet oppression in Hungary, and most of them were largely forbidden. Mm-hmm. And all these stories and the books connect and create this beautiful community where the support is phenomenal. They keep coming back, Jace. And, we talk about where we started. Some of them start writing their own books, which I absolutely love to hear that, they took this as an inspiration and then they dived in. And now they have their own book out and they're going to book festivals. Every single one of these interactions are something I cherish and I love, and I can't wait to see them back at the San Diego Comic-Con.
Yeah, so everybody, again, like I mentioned, there's you have a booth on the show floor. We have an outside activation. There's also going to be a panel, right? So let's talk a little bit about the offsite activation first at Sidebar Nightclub, 536 Market Street, if I'm not mistaken, from 12 to 4. So talk a little bit about that. I mean, imagine that must be just a ton of work to put on, but probably very rewarding to get to share that with your fans, right? So tell us what we can expect there at the offsite activation.
Jace, this outside activation is 12 to 4 at the Sidebar, which you just mentioned the address. And what I'm so excited about is that we have a chance to invite all the audience in, whether they have a ticket or not, whether they're local or not, and they can come in, interact with character actors. There's 5 character actors walking through the restaurant, and each tells a story. They give them, character cards, posters, swags. We spoil our audience. They get a free drink and, of course, the famous purple bag. And as they go through it, they get to see the world building. They get to interact with these amazing character actors who know these characters by heart. They interact with the audience, and it's going to be a very magical experience. I hope a lot of readers and fans and audience like you join us.
Yeah, and it's fantastic that you're doing it, off-site. So, because you mentioned, not everybody can get a badge. So even if you're a fan, you weren't able to get a badge for San Diego or for whatever reason, if you're a fan of the Last Lumenian, I definitely encourage you to go check it out. But if you do have a pass to San Diego Comic-Con, a couple of things to be aware of. So first of all, there's going to be a panel Friday, July 25th from 4 to 5. It's at the Marriott Marquis Grand 11 and 12. And that's going to, SG is going to be there, David Baxter is going to be there, Leslie. So talking all about the Last Lumenian, and I'm sure it's going to be a fantastic time. But beyond that, the other thing that's really exciting is Booth 2020. You can follow the world of Hollow Healer, which is the animated teaser, right? That's set in the world of Last Lumenian. So tell us, what can you share about Hollow Healer? If I'm not mistaken, this is going to be the world premiere, right? Fans getting to see it for the first time?
It's a world premiere of the teaser for the Hollow Healer, and I'm very excited, Jace, to share that with everyone who stops by. It follows a humble healer who encounters tragedy by the hands of a tyrant, and because of that, he embarks on a road of vengeance, unaware of the bigger balance that's at risk due to his actions. And this story is the origin of the Archgod, the first turn, and the Archgoddess. Their birth sets the Era Wars in motion, and it is a prequel to the Seven Galaxies Chronicles and the Last Lumenian book series.
So I have to say that anybody that's a fan of the Last Lumenian series, I mean, you hear that this is the the origin of the Archgod and the prequel. It's like, how can you not want to check it out? So. Make sure that you're following and you're signed up for SG's newsletter as well, because I'm sure after Comic-Con, when some of the details on how to see the full animated Hollow Healer and all that will be coming a little bit later. Is that right, SG?
That's correct, and it's going to be amazing. I cannot wait to share it with everyone.
I'll put a link to SG's social media and the website in the show notes, so you can go and click there, and I'll put details about all the San Diego stuff as well. So again, SG, thank you so much for taking the time. Really excited. I'm not going to quite let you go yet, though, because there's a couple of other things that I want to talk about. First of all, doing this at Comic-Con, you mentioned the first time doing it at LA Comic-Con, but I get this sense, and now that we've talked, it seems to be proven true, because I've always gotten the sense from you, because you are so involved in the fan community and what have you, that you're really one of us. You're one of us. You're a fan of comics. You're a fan of film and TV and movie and stories. So it's almost like if you weren't necessarily an author that has this incredibly successful award-winning series, the Comic-Con is a place that you would go anyway to kind of experience it. So the fact that you are a creator and you get to meet your fans, as you were mentioning, it must just be a dream come true. You ever pinch yourself like, man, I can't believe where I've come in the last 5 years, how far I've come?
Oh my gosh, Jace, every single time I'm pinching myself, because this is a dream come true. I'm an avid reader. I'm a huge fan of sci-fi fantasy. And to be there, to connect with the audience, to share this, to explore the San Diego Comic-Con, it is absolutely magical. I know I keep using that word. It's just so true how fantastic it is to be there. And when the fans come and we immediately connect on, this is the TV show we love, this is the movie we love, this is the last book we read. It is so beautiful, Jace. And it's truly an amazing experience that I get hooked on, and I can't wait to keep repeating every year.
Yeah, that's amazing. Here's the other part of it. You've chosen to be a writer as your career, and from all, like I mentioned, other interviews I've seen you give, it definitely seems like it was your calling, and I'm so happy for you for your success. But at the end of the day, all your hard work and all your writing, the foundational 7 years that you took, and now you're on that pace of 1 year. But it's a kind of a solitary profession, right? Like you're sitting in your office and you're writing, and you're hoping that your stories reach people and touch people, and you have that connection. And part of the reason you do the shows, like you mentioned, is getting to have that fan interaction. But again, it is solitary, so you're not necessarily getting that gratification of job well done, because it's a little bit, even somebody I'm sure as successful as you are, every time you put out that new novel, it's the next part of the story, there's still a little bit of nervousness, right? Like, how are fans going to react and what have you. So I'm sure that plays into it, right? Getting to be amongst other people rather than being solitary in your office writing the next part of the story.
It's definitely the best part of being an author when I'm out of my little den. It's
Right.
dark. It's very lonely to write that novel and to, as you said, to connect with the fans and the audience. And I always get surprised when they tell me who their favorite character is, or what they noticed, or what they took away, or when they reread the book, they kept noticing the Easter eggs, or they started to guess what's going to be the next book series, because I always say it's going to be 9 books. And my avid readers, they know there is an Easter egg in book 1 that will explain what that series could be. So it's fantastic to talk, to exchange, and to be the reader, and I get to geek out with them. You know, it's so fun.
Well, last question, a little bit more about process. We've talked a little bit about some of the inspirations that you've had, and we've talked about, how Last Lumenian, it's so rounded. It has aspects of sci-fi and romance and adventure. Does that just come naturally for you? I know you have it all planned out, but you also leave room to have things, grow and change organically. But in terms of balancing out those different kind of aspects of the story, the adventure, the romance, the sci-fi, that sort of stuff, is it something that you're conscious of, or you're so far into it now that it just kind of comes naturally and you don't have to really think about it?
Thank you, Jace, for that question. It's a little bit of both about, naturally the story turns to this direction, and also to have the notes on the genres, on the subplots, on the characters. So definitely both of them happening at the same time. I love spending 3 to 4 months on the structure, on getting to know these characters of who they really are. Because when you know your characters, they will bring the story forward. They're the ones who are enacting that story and the conflict. So it helps me a lot. And by the time I sit down to write, I have all this knowledge in the background that allows the art to come naturally and build on top of that foundation.
So a lot of times when people have book deals with big publishing houses, they'll have an editor that can kind of, give them point, hey, it's a little light on the action, or hey, a little light on the romance. Now, because you're doing independent, you don't necessarily have that, but do you take advantage of any test readers, like people that you really trust their opinion and that sort of thing?
That's a very good point, Jace. I do have an amazing company called the New York Book Editors who are helping me with the editing process. And I go through 3 rounds, 2 line edit and 1 copy edit. And this is where, before I even send it to any beta readers, by the way, this is where I get to talk to my editor, where we talk about, is the structure solid? Are there plot gaps? How's the world building? World building is almost always the last that I add to the top, because I need to know if the beginning and ending is strong. Because this has to be a journey for a reader where they don't get lost, unless we need them to get lost, right? We usually want them to get to the end in a fairly straightforward manner. Yeah. So this helps to get everything in line. And then I spent a couple months on world building. I have 500 questions, thanks to Patricia Reedy, who is a Sci-Fi Fantasy Writers of America member. She put up this amazing questionnaire for everyone to use for sci-fi and fantasy mostly. And I followed those questions. And as I answer them, I start to understand deeper the history of the world, how the politicians operate, the crime, how do they even handle sewage. It's very helpful, and that helps to create a rounded, very professional product, a book that everyone can get lost to and not realize it was published by an independent author.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Even if it doesn't necessarily make it, into the book, a paragraph about, waste disposal, let's say. But if you know what it works like in that world, then it adds context to other things. And I've heard so many, both prose writers as well as comic and film, whatever. They say, yeah, there's so much in my head. There's a Bible, Todd McFarlane, when he talks about Spawn, he says, there's so much Spawn stuff in my head. I know how everything works. It may never actually make it onto the page, but if I know how it works, then it just makes the story better in the long run. So it sounds like you ascribe to that theory.
Oh, absolutely, Jace. In fact, I have thousands of pages that's just world building, ready to be a content anywhere, from a comic book world building series or a documentary. Because as you said, we can only get 10, maybe 15% of it into the books, but the rest is ready to be explored and dived into. The little rabbit holes are ready for the audience, but I'm not going to put them all into my books because that would be too much.
Well, the other thing is that some of them, some of the ideas may work better in other mediums, you know, and I know you're very open to that, and that's probably how we ended up with the Hollow Healer, right? Which is going to be a different medium than the prose novels, getting in something that's animated.
That's correct, Jace. The Hollow Healer was always there in a form of we have an origin story for this archgod. And as I dived into that origin story and explored it, I started to see, the layers of what will happen, what could happen, and how important to understand that someone who's amoral could turn into evil, and someone who is not evil can turn to evil. It was a very interesting exploration of these themes that allowed me to create these origin stories.
Well, I hope it does gangbusters. I can't wait to check it out myself when the full release is out. And everybody, highly encourage you, again, go sign up for the newsletter so you know when the full animation drops, and you'll be able to check it out. Because if we want more of the Last Lumenian and the Seven Galaxy Chronicles and other media, we need this to be successful. So best of luck with everything, Esther. You've bitten off so much at San Diego this year, so I hope everything goes well for you. And don't forget, everybody, you can head down the links in the show notes for the website, the social media, and details on everything that's going on for SG at San Diego Comic-Con. So as we're winding down here, SG, anything else you want to share with our audience?
You said everything beautifully, Jace. Thank you so much for having me. Please stop by at sgblaise.com for news and any information. And thank you again for having me, Jace.
It's my pleasure. And to everybody out there in the audience, whether you're joining us audio only or on YouTube, we really appreciate the support, and we'll talk to you next time.